Hello everyone, I'm David Day from Samurai Digital Security. I want to talk a little today about the Cloudflare outage that occurred yesterday and why that is concerning me so greatly for a number of different reasons. So in case you were unaware, and I could understand how you might be, considering it wasn't really highlighted in the way it should have been within the media and on the news. This is a very, very big story which appears to have been misinterpreted as a minor one. So yesterday, Cloudflare had a major global outage. So around about 11:20 that I spotted it, in fact a little bit before, when I noticed that Cloudflare's portal was no longer allowing me to log in and utilize it, and Cloudflare Workers, which is one of the services which Cloudflare offers to developers, had stopped responding as well. Initially I thought it was some bad code, but no, Cloudflare had gone down. The first thing I did actually was email many of the reporters, some of which I know and have worked with, many of which I didn't. And amazingly, I didn't get a response from any of them, which is rather shocking. And then when I took my lunch, I put the news on and didn't see anything about it on that either, which I find, considering about 20% of the internet was flipping up and down, rather amazing that nobody felt the need to talk to us about it. Just remarkable. How we're becoming utterly and totally desensitized to huge internet infrastructure outages which cost millions and billions of pounds. It's just rather shocking. But anyway, I'll talk about that more shortly. But just to remind you, Cloudflare went down. Services affected yesterday included ChatGPT, OpenAI, Spotify, Discord, Canva, IKEA, a lot of the UK public sector sites and lots of smaller businesses' websites, including ours, went down. Now, Cloudflare says the trigger was a configuration file used for bot and threat traffic management that grew larger than it was expected to. That caused a latent bug to be triggered, and it crashed part of their core traffic handling and caused the fallover. Now, they say that this particular incident was not a malicious activity, and they found a fix for it and they fixed it and everything's okay. But I don't know, it's like I'm very skeptical. This always seems to be the go-to comment by large infrastructure, is they never want to admit even the possibility of a cyber attack. And I know through other areas, which I'm not going to go into or disclose, that cyber attacks have been passed off as technical configuration issues or bugs when they are cyber attacks. Obviously, this has less of an impact on share prices, on public image. So I'm always a little skeptical when I hear it, but I'm certainly not saying that isn't the case. I'm just saying it's wise to have a healthy skepticism on this particular issue. So this was a very serious incident. They disabled Warp in London, and Warp is like it's a bit like a VPN, if you like. It's a means to proxy your traffic through Cloudflare in a way that masks your IP address or gives you a unique specific IP address, and that IP address can be tallied with certain applications so that only you can access them and nobody else can. And it also offers some anonymity as well for people who want to work from a coffee house, for example. And the fact that they disabled that, to me, shows how serious this particular issue was. So just to explain how important this is, so if we go with their explanation, right, a small bug, a small configuration issue, which is essentially what happened, is apparently they changed the permissions on this file, and this caused this file to read duplicate rows into it, and it became too large. And the file itself is used for determining whether traffic is coming from a human or a bot. But the technicalities of this really don't matter. What the important factor is a very, very minor issue here, causing an outage of 20% of the internet. So Cloudflare sits in front of millions of websites. It's responsible for handling their DNS. It's responsible for handling distributed denial of service attacks that can happen against it. It acts as a web firewall. So for many sites that you try to connect to on the internet, the first place that your traffic is going when you try to visit that URL is to Cloudflare. So when Cloudflare's shared brain is choked, thousands of unrelated services fail altogether, and that is what happened yesterday. So again, we are wholly relying here on Cloudflare's own statements for what the cause is. We don't have any information beyond what it tells us. And as I've mentioned, big providers always like to lead with technical language, even while they're still checking whether hostile traffic played a role. Their opener is to bamboozle you with technical language, in the hope that you just accept what's being said. Now, I'm not saying this was an attack, and I don't have any evidence of it being an attack. What I am saying is the information flow is one-sided, and it's always wise to have a little bit of healthy skepticism when any organization is telling you what caused a particular issue. They're always going to lead with what puts them in the most favorable light. So, if this was purely a technical fault, that is scary, because it means one file bug at one firm has knocked over a huge slice of the web. And if hostile traffic contributed to that, it's even scarier, because it shows how attractive these choke points are. Now, what I'm leading to here is the internet is dependent upon a number of core services, which I can refer to as choke points. In other words, they're stress points. And if they get attacked or disrupted or fall over, then we are in serious trouble. The whole of the internet can be disrupted through either cyber attack. In this case with Cloudflare, they're saying misconfiguration. You can believe that if you wish, and maybe it's true, but it matters not. What matters is the fact that Cloudflare is one choke point, and there's many others as well, many other choke points. So, AWS, Google Cloud Services, your top level domain name servers. There's many areas of the internet, and it's really quite terrifying how easily it could be for malicious state actors to bring our internet down. And I think yesterday we got a small insight into that and completely ignored it, almost completely ignored it, with minimum news coverage. I mean, we have a boat, don't we? We have a ship at the moment, a Russian ship, which is hanging around near UK's sea area, its ocean area, and that particular ship, as I'm led to understand, is actually looking at where cabling infrastructure is running under the ocean, on the seabed. Now, you disrupt those cabling, you kill our internet, and this is obviously something that Russia is keen to understand whether that's viable. And that's cyber warfare. This is reconnaissance for cyber warfare, in the same way as hackers do reconnaissance against your infrastructure and your websites. It's happening on an international scale. If you just take a pause for a second, please, and think, what would happen if our entire internet infrastructure went down? Point of service tills, banking ATMs, banks. The majority of businesses would not be able to function. Society would collapse right now if we didn't have the internet. Yesterday, we got a brief glimpse into what it might be like for a few minutes if a fifth of it went down. And we didn't care. how sensitive and how vulnerable we are to this happening is frightening. I mean, I remember, it's like, and I think the media have a big part to play in the concerns of this, and the fact that it just isn't big news anymore. I remember, like, if you went back maybe 10, 15 years, I used to get called upon to talk about particular stories with breaches and with issues and with incidents that had happened. Because the news, it was fashionable. It was just a fashionable thing to do, to talk about Sony's been hacked, PlayStation's been hacked, and these were small, minor things, and they were all over the news. Now you have major fundamental outages with the internet's infrastructure, and nobody cares. Look what happened with Jaguar Land Rover. I mean, it's enormous. The government had to bail them out, billions, to remedy this, and even that didn't get any kind of major news coverage. It got some, but nowhere near what it should have done. And that's just one organisation. I'm talking about the entire infrastructure of the internet. I sit here face palming at how blinkered we are and naive we are to think that this isn't a really big issue that we should be putting an awful lot of effort into ensuring doesn't happen. Because the next big war is going to be cyber warfare. It's going to be hugely dependent upon that. So anyway, that's one of my key concerns, and I think we need to have a think about what we're going to do in terms of ensuring that other choke points are protected. So the part of the internet relies on a service called DNS. If you're from a technical background, you know what it is. Domain name services. It's basically the way in which the internet resolves human-sounding names like, samuraisecurity.co.uk into IP addresses and vice versa, right? So it has like a translation between the two. So it changes what's easily rememberable for a human into something that a machine can more readily work with. And if DNS services go down, names can't be resolved, we are in big trouble. So that's one of the areas or choke points which people could look at attacking. And I already mentioned about sort of hyperscale cloud regions, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. A lot of organizations' complete infrastructure runs through these services. If you break those, and there's many ways you can break them, one of them would be via DNS, but there's other ways too. Then we can be, in an awful lot of trouble. And beyond Cloudflare, we've also got Acme and Fastly, and there's other services as well that, if they are brought down, we don't have any internet anymore. Identity and login providers, Microsoft Entra, Okta, Google Identity, again, these are choke points. Payment rails and gateways, MasterCard, Stripe, WorldPay, Visa. These are the huge incidents that can happen. Internet exchange points as well. I don't want to get into the BGP routing system, but there's already a lot of people speculative saying that that's been compromised and traffic is being routed to places it shouldn't be, and therefore your information is being looked at by parties which shouldn't be looking at it through a border gateway protocol routing algorithm compromises. Many of which are happening and we don't even know about them. I've seen some very, very suspicious traffic out there during forensic investigations on network traffic. And, in my view, at least, this is already happening. Your data is being pushed through places where you would be amazed and very worried about if you knew. And not happening through the design of the internet, happening through the manipulation of the infrastructure behind the internet. We've talked about the undersea cables. It's a really, really big worry. The UK's global connectivity rides on a small number of fibre cables. And these are the ones which the Russians are interested in that are in the ocean. You cut those, you isolate complete regions. And mobile as well. People accessing the internet through mobile calls, take those out and you lose comms at once. And we have so many of these. So here's what I'm getting at, right? What I'm getting at is the Cloudflare outage yesterday should have been, what it should have been, is a real warning sign, right? A real red flag. It should have been a slap across the face to give us a small idea of what a bigger failure would look like. And what worries me is nobody blinked. Nobody batted an eyelid. The total disregard for the seriousness of that and the bigger questions it raises are shocking. So this isn't a niche tech story. You know, we're talking about our critical infrastructure. So basically, what I'm getting at here is we need to be far less complacent, and have far much more fault tolerance and resilience built in to these choke points. Otherwise, what we're going to find is the lights are going to go out. You know, the internet's going to die, and we are going to be in serious, serious trouble. Sensationalist? I flipping hope so. I really do. But I'm just putting that warning out there and hoping that people pay a lot more attention and start to think about the dangers that are posed by malicious parties performing cyber warfare, cyber terrorism against us. Thanks for listening to my rant. Take care. Bye.